Good morning, guys. Myself Vivek Shah, and I am a founder and managing director of a gaming studio called Capermint Technology Private Limited. We are a studio helping all the indie game developers to develop, design, and publish their hyper-casual games since last 7 years. Regarding hyper-casual games, since all the publisher has shown their interest, whether that's Voodoo, whether that's Kowali, whether that's Homo Games, the sign of a maturity and the booming of market, which are yielding high returns and huge download numbers and players. Hyper-casual game, hyper-casual is a very specific genre. You will need to show that your game has all the elements that have been proven to market. These games are successful and so on. The main bread and butter of hyper-casual game is that your game should be short, simple, and satisfying. When I say satisfying, it means a user and a publisher both should be feel okay. This game is very much niche and very much clean. Game should be very much small. It should be played by a small kid to 74 years grandma, right? So as an indie game developer or a gaming studio, if you are planning to build your own hyper casual games, these are my points which you need to take care when you are planning or when you are creating a concept or when you are developing your games. The first most point is clear and compiling core gameplay loop. What does it mean? When you define your gameplay, when you define your levels, when you define the complexity of your gameplay, it should be very much clear and compiled. It should be very much smooth. It should be very much to the point that when if you see a helix, the physics is very niche. The way when the ball is touched to the surface, it shows the effects and animation everything. Second, it should have a smooth player controls and interactions. uh, the controls in hyper casual games are very much important. Maybe you can use your gyrometer, maybe you can use your touch controls, maybe you can use two buttons to uh, to have your gameplay and to have that gameplay work along with your other levels. And the interaction, when I say interaction, it means there should be some animations, there should be some sort of uh, rewards and sort of things where it engage your users to play more and more levels. It tells, okay, if you clear first level, you will go to second level. You, if you clear multiple levels, you will get something. So that sort of interaction should be there into your gameplay. Third most part is the process of reward and feedback to keep your player engaged. See, hyper casual market is so much crowded. So many games are coming day by day. So many games are getting disappear every single morning. So if you provide more rewards, if you have a right concept of providing rewards to your users, and you keep tracking them, you keep checking their feedbacks about your games, then your game can be successful on top of the world, because player engagement and player feedback are always so much important. And getting rewards when you play the game and you get something, kind of diamonds, kind of coins, kind of anything, that engage the user the most, that motivates them to play more and more levels. Fourth most important part is essential user interface and attractive user style. In hyper casual games, your character design, your environment design, your color combination should be up to the mark. It should be met with the conditions, met with the demand of the market. Because right now, so many vibrant colors are there, so many vibrant color combinations are there. So your visual impact are always important. Second, if you use characters, if you use mascot in your game, it will give you a cherry on the top, because major hyper casual games has circle or square or rectangle kind of objects, right? But if you come up with a concept of any small 2D or 3D character, it will give you cherry on the top. It will make you different. It will make your game little bit more something called total different than other hyper casual games. The user interface. should be pretty much clear. If it is on 4-inch screen, if it is on 7-inch screen, if it is on iPad, every single pixel should look perfect, right and niche. Not a single perfect, not a single pixel should get broken or something should be happen to that. Fifth most important part is enough content to keep your player coming back after 7 days. As you know, the life cycle of hyper casual games are very short. So many games are there, so many small games are there. The gameplay levels are very less compared to casual games. So the more you engage your user with their feedback, with the rewards, the more chances they come back to your game again after 7 days. The 7 days of timeline, why is it so? Because if I see on a publisher point of view, every publisher wants a right CPI and CPR testing on your game. So they check when they approach, or you approach them, or they approach to you, they check what kind of concept you have, what kind of game mechanism you have, what kind of game mechanics you have. Then based on that, their CPI, CPR campaigns can run. And if your concept are good enough, if your concept are interactive enough, then they give you a right platform to publish your game, right? So their first level of checking or second level of checking is 7 days of iteration. If you publish your game on the first day, they will check, okay, what is user acquisition, what could be, how user will interact with your games, how they respond to your games, how engaging your gameplay is, how you can bring your user back to your game again after 7 days. So that is again more interesting part. The last and the most important part when you defining your hyper-casual game or concept is reliable system for testing, tracking and improving your games. What is that? See, testing is always an essential part for any simple game, right? But when it comes about hyper-casual games, testing comes under the CPR test, CPR rate, CPI rate, retention ratio. Your should be there. So that is a testing. When you make a game, you should understand that the retention ratio of the user acquisition cost, the CPR cost, the CPI cost should be pretty much viable or elite. So what is viable and elite? When you say your CTR rate is around 4%, it's viable. And when you say your CTR rate is around 10%, it's more elite. When you say your CPI rate is zero point 0.5, it's more viable, and zero point 0.20 is more elite. And your retention ratio should be roughly around 35% day one retention and 8% on day seven retention. And again, if you plan for 2 weeks, consider 5% day retention should be there. Right. So these are the most important points when you plan, when you make your game, uh, or when you develop a game or that moment, right? These are the points which you need to take care when you are planning or in a conceptual stage to prepare your game. The most important part which every indie game developer or studio face are they are doing certain mistakes which they should not do on the first place, right? Then that mistake caused them a lot while they self-publish a game or while they go to any specific, uh, let's say, any specific user or any specific things, right? The main concern about that is you should be aware about that what are the mistakes you should not do. As I say, a gameplay should be pretty much compiled and clear. So when you define your difficulty levels, make sure your difficulty levels are not that much complex to the user when they play the game. So defining a design levels, defining a difficulty of the levels are always the most important part. So these are the mistake which all the indie game developers or a studio are consequently do. Second, the confusing and missing onboarding. What does it mean? So when some user came into the game, when they onboard in the game, they should not feel confused how to play that game. They should not be confused how this game works. They should not be confused how this control works. So there should be a how to play screen. There should be some sort of technical knowledge, or there should be some sort of informative videos on your initial screen that will tell user, okay, click on this left side, click on this right side, click on top, so you can see how this control works. Or there should be a taste level as well, where they can just play and get used to with the game and the gameplay. Thermos part is creating games using unpopular gaming mechanics. What other game developers or gaming studio does, they follow the trends, right? Certain trends are for casual games, certain trends are for hyper casual games, certain trends are for non hyper casual games, right? So when you plan your game or when you have a concept in your mind, you should be pretty much clear about what popular game mechanics you need to use or what unpopular game mechanics you should use, right? When Voodoo was working with Helix, it was pretty much clear that they wanted to go with tap 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 kind of control on their part. They wanted to go in terms of, let's say, physics based games, right? At that moment there was no uh, concept of rising and falling, right? So they used uh, unpopular gaming mechanics which encourage the player to contribute to the rise or fall of an object or entire environment. To complicate the process, it is also possible to create the speed or the number of obstacles, right? So when you define your obstacle, when you define your speed, when your when you define your environment, every damn thing should be pretty much clear on a day one itself, right? So do you can manipulate your players on the both the side, specific object and entire level in form of platform or wall, right? The main feature of this mechanics is destructive sense of gravity. I'm talking about Helix, the one of the top leading game of Voodoo, right? Uh, they have done a pretty much in-depth work before they go into development phase. They have done like what are the impossible things, get around the issue of mechanics. They have think about what could be the build, what could be the developer take-ons on two mechanics. All that things they have done. You can find out on Google that how they have utilized the full strength of defining the hyper casual games, right? So, and the fourth most important part is using a right game engine. When I say game engine, there are a hell lot of multiple game engine available in the market on which you can develop your hypercasual games. Out of that, few are top, few are having still into beta, few are still into consideration that okay, you should not consider this game engine as your initial development because their bulkiness of APK, their bulkiness of the game. So what I suggest we should, there are a couple of game engines, but from my perspective or the studio perspective, we should go with a Unity as a game engine. And there is another game engine which is drag and drop that is called Billbox. Now onwards, Billbox is supporting 2D and 3D as well. Even Kawali has an exclusive uh, partnership with Billbox, so you get certain by default publisher access when you use a right game engine. So choosing your right game engine is a essential part to build a successful hyper casual game. And many of the indie game developers, many of the studio make a mistake on an initial level when they use a wrong game engine. And fifth most important part is air placement. When you say hyper casual games, right? Everyone thinks about how to make money. They think about how I can get my investment return back. They think about how other stuff can work. So the most important part on hyper casual game is earning the money, right? But you have multiple channels to earn your money. But the one of the most important channel is advertisement. So placing of an advertisement is again a big concern when you build a hyper casual game, because on normal games you can have anywhere On normal game, you can have any damn things on your side, but the main concern is that how you place your advertisement, where you place your advertisement. Make sure uh, your placing your advertisement uh, is not on a wrong side, right? So, what my suggestion on this is, let's understand first what are the ads you can place on hyper casual games. There are three types of ads you can place on hyper casual games. One is video ads, second is banner ads, third is interstitial ad, right? So when there's a reward video ads, as a studio and as we work with multiple publishers as well, we suggest reward video ads should be come under, let's say, kind of rewards or after a gameplay. When someone is playing a game, right? When someone is playing a game, he earns something, right? At that moment, he need a life or something. Utilize that mechanism into reward video ads. Show that video ads and get some diamonds or something and pre-play the same gameplay or restart the game where you are at that moment. Second is banner ads. The study of Litoff found that this traditional format can be more effective than video ads that aren't built specifically for the ad campaign. The study also found that the banner ads are outperforming native ads when it comes to post installation engagement on Android. So, banner ads are the most essential part of the game when you think about revenue generation. Banner ads should be what we always suggest. Banner ads should not be ever into your gameplay, which makes your user frustrated when that ads popping up now and then. So one should consider that banner ads should not be into uh, gameplay. Banner can be into your intro screens, in your home screen, into your setting or control screens, right? At that moment, the visibilities are there. The user can see the ads, and the impression will get count. The third most part is interstitial ad. Interstitial ad is all about uh, operational ads, right? We call it operational ads. Why? When some operation happens, so operation means, let's say your game is loading, let's say your game plays loading, let's say your game is over, let's say you are controlling your sounds and visual effects, let's say you are into in-app purchase form. At that moment, if you show interstitial ad, there are high chances that people will see and click on that. There are high chances that it will be visible to the user, right? The click ratio is not important, but the visibility is an important part. So showing up a ad which not make your user frustrated and it popping up on a right time is also most important part when you make when you actually make your plan of a game, right? So these are the mistakes which you should not do when you build hyper casual games. And now talking about the success of hyper casual games, right? I must say there are multiple aspect of making this game success, right? What I find the four key steps to making a hyper casual game success are like your game should be lightweight and simple, right? Like if you use the right game engine, you can control your game size and graphics uh, much near to 5 MB or 10 MB megabyte of memories. Second, you should use only one mechanics, right? Many users, many indie developers, what they start try to make a game unique, and in that uniqueness, they use so many mechanics which may frustrate the users. So usually, a single mechanic have a minimalist interface. When a gamer opens a hyper casual gaming app, it's important for them to able to access the game within seconds because the game itself is simple and it should load like very smooth way. So that's the main point you should understand. uh, then pick up a right game engine, And the most important part is soft launch. What people do normally, they usually build a full game and went to the publisher. Says, okay, come with one or two levels, and they integrate their SDK and they do the A/B testing and everything, and they realize, okay, this particular gameplay or game mechanics or concept may not work in the respective regions, right? So you are wasting your time at that moment when you are thinking about building a full game, right? So go with the MVP model way, go with the simple model way where you can just approach multiple publishers and they can give you some feedback and they give you some suggestion, and based on that you do a soft launch, right? Why? It's always a critical for the gamer to be instantly accessible, right? But a developer should wait want to wait to be easy, or it be difficult. So my suggestion is that developers should do A/B test, then mechanics a different speed to find a perfect balance that will keep user engaged without becoming frustrating enough that they stop playing. And the foremost is retry rate. The retry rate is all about your reward ads, your banner ads, your interstitial ads, right? They should be there always in a first place. So when you done with your concept, when you're done with this all part, you want to go with the publisher, right? So you need to aware about, if you want to make your hyper casual game successful, you have two options. Either you self-publish it, second you go with the publisher. So when you do self-publish it, you have Apple Store, Google Store, and you have to wait. It's a patience game where you need to do marketing and everything. Second is you should go with a publisher, right? When you go with a publisher, I can say these seven steps you need to take care before you went to publisher. The first point is CTR rate. You should be aware about your CTR rate, and it should be around 4 to 10 percentage. Second, your CPI rate, it should be around 0.50 to 0.20 percentage of installation. Second is your retention ratio. Retention ratio should be roughly around 35% per day on a one retention, 8% per day to 8% to 8% per day to 7 days of retention ratio. Fourth most important thing is your game's elevator speech. When I say elevator speech, it should be very much small, to the point, and it should showcase your gameplay, your game mechanism, and everything. Fifth is you should be aware about, as a development studio or indie developer, you should be aware about the key detail about your game, how it works, how it will not work, what are the loopholes, what are the USPs, what are the main points you should have. Six, your metrics. You should be aware about your metrics, your user engagement ratio, what kind of SDKs you can integrate in your particular hypercasual games, how you can track user behavior, how you can track other SDKs. The seven most important uh, is your plan for the next steps, right? Because because the because you should be aware about how what could be the next. Because if you go with a five-layer level or 10 levels, what will be next? Like once your game get uh, game reach to top of the table, you should be aware about what should be your next step. So that is what you should be aware about when you approach any publishers. From my list, I have a few top publishers from India and other part of the world, and you can approach to make your successful game to them. They are, one is a Voodoo, second is a Homa Games, third is Zplay, and fourth is Gsmart, Muni, Boomist. These are the top publishers who has clear cut policy of approval of your games. So you can approach them, you can talk to them about your game, and that's it. That's it from my end. Uh, Before saying goodbye, I would like to thank you all of you to listen to me Feel free to ask me anything offline. You can reach me to my LinkedIn. I will be more than happy to connect you at anywhere on social media. And one more thing, we are closely working with the different stakeholders in startup ecosystem at India, and I would welcome those who wish to join hands with us on building a hyper casual game ecosystem at India itself. Thank you so much.